Hello, my name's Nina Oram. I'm the author of a young adult fantasy trilogy called the Granuaile series, published by Luna Press Publishing. I will be reading two extracts from the second book in the trilogy called The Emerald Tree, which was released at the beginning of April this year. Having realised the power of Ellyllon in the first book, in The Emerald Tree, Jasmine, Malachy and Seamus attempt to stop the dark and manipulative druid Ellyllon. In this first extract, Ellyllon has fled into the past. Learning he has aligned with Granuaile, the legendary pirate queen, they travel west into the heart of her lands. Gorse dotted the landscape, growing in thick spiky clusters, its flowers brilliant flashes of yellow and orange against the duller green and brown. Off to the right, water shimmered, the lake's surface a cold, smooth platinum despite the warmth of the day. The road twisted first one way and then the other, past another lake and then another. A breeze tugged at Jasmine's hood, rippled the white fluff of the bog cotton, like a million rabbits waving their bottoms in the air. Bog flowed into mountain, and mountains appeared over the tops of the trees, and then back to bog. The land began to undulate, the ground dipping and rising into hillocks and hills. Slowly, surreptitiously, the mountains moved closer. Jasmine could see the roughness of the rock, the weathering of the stone in the jagged granite outcrops. "How much further do we have to go?" she asked, stretching and wriggling, trying to alleviate the ache that was spreading across her backside and into her lower back. Seamus stopped his horse and examined the countryside. "I'm not sure. I think we're getting close." He glanced at her. "Is there a problem?" "No, I'm just stiff." "Then we should stop and give you a chance to walk. Look." He pointed towards the next hill. "See that outcrop of rocks? It's the perfect place to stop. But behind them we won't be seen from the road. It can't be far. About a mile?" It looked further away than that. Sighing quietly to herself, Jasmine nodded. They reached the outcrop. Smooth grey stone towered as Seamus led them around to the other side. "God, man, me arse is really sore," Jasmine muttered. "I can't wait to get off this horse." He laughed. "So's mine. I don't know how Seamus does it. He doesn't seem to notice it." "Oh, I notice all right," Seamus said, looking all around them. "I just don't keep complaining about it." He frowned. "I don't like this. Something's wrong." At that moment all hell broke loose. Men shouting, their arms swinging wildly, ran at them from all directions. Spooked, Jasmine's horse backed into Malachy's, sending it rearing. She fought for control as men swarmed all around her. They snatched at her, trying to grab her legs, her arms, and pull her to the ground. Malachy was already there, his body heaving as he fought against the men holding him. A hand caught her cloak, another her leggings. She screamed and tried to push them away, and then Seamus's Ellyllon roared past her, knocking the men from her and sending them flying. More men appeared. Seamus's Ellyllon flashed again, but it was too late. There were too many. They grabbed her, using their weight to topple her and press her body to the ground. She turned her head, searching wildly for Seamus, the movement sending her hair, already loose, tumbling inside her hood. A man with a thick black hair and narrow face behind a beard and moustache moved towards them, carrying a sword in his right hand. Behind her the men were cursing, shouting at each other in Irish to hold him down, and she guessed Seamus was on the ground, but still fighting. The man with the sword stopped in front of her, and the men holding her let go. He studied her for a moment, his eyes narrowed suspiciously, and then, taking a step back, flicked his sword. The blade glistened in the sunlight. Another flick, and he thrust it downwards, straight towards the centre of her face. In the second reading, Jasmine and the others have joined force with Granuaile. As part of their agreement, they break into the castle of McDermott, her old enemy, in an attempt to rescue her nephew. They stepped into a huge courtyard. A wooden structure hugged the wall similar to a veranda, the struts holding the thatched canopy in place. Used for storage and to house the craftsmen necessary for life in the castle, the blacksmith, the weapon maker, the potter and tailor. Now there was no one here. Even the turrets, spaced evenly across the top of the courtyard wall, were empty. MacDermott will want to give Granuaile a show of force, but he would not leave the castle undefended. Where are the guards? Duggan asked Seamus, frowning. This is the weak point in the castle's defence. How can they not defend it? I don't know. Seamus shook his head. Jasmine and Malachy looked at one another. She could almost read his mind. I don't like it. Neither did she. Keeping in the shadow of the canopy, they made their way to the nearest tower. Jasmine's foot caught on a raised cobble and she fell to her knees. One hand catching a small barrel bounced on top of another and sending it crashing. Granuaile's men leapt forward, shielding them with weapons raised. They froze. Nothing happened. Duggan lifted his hand. Wait. Still nothing. Together they took a breath, the men lowering their swords as Malachy helped her to her feet. Are you okay? He whispered as the others stepped past. She nodded. I think so. He turned away, and as she went to follow, a movement from the backside of the courtyard caught her eye. She reached out to tell Malachy, but he'd already gone. There it was again, pale, coming out of the shadows. It looked exactly like an arm lifting. She took a step towards it. It was still there. She took another. Jasmine! Malachy hissed, appearing suddenly. He grabbed her arm. Come on! He tugged at her, but she resisted. She looked back, but the arm had gone. With another hiss, Malachy turned again, and this time she let herself be led. Two narrow steps led up to a small door. Darting forward, Duggan turned the handle. It clicked, and the door swung open. Unlocked, Seamus said grimly. The tower was dark, the only light the moonlight coming in through the narrow windows and the open doorway. A stone staircase curled up one wall, the steps disappearing into shadow. The room was cold, the air damp. Shivering, Jasmine drew her cloak tight around her. Her hands, she noticed with surprise, were shaking. Duggan moved towards the staircase, but Seamus put out his hand to stop him. Remember what we agreed. No one is to be killed. If we see someone, I'll handle it. There was a pause, and then Duggan nodded. He took a step back, lifted one hand and grinned. After you? Thank you, Seamus responded dryly. Slowly, cautiously, he began to climb. They reached the first floor. There was only one door leading into the main house. Seamus grabbed the handle and, turning it ever so slowly, pushed the door open into a wide corridor. Torches lay down both sides, bright against the white walls and the dark, narrow floorboards. There was little decoration, just one small wooden chair and an empty iron candlestick. The windows to the right were shuttered, keeping out the night and the cold breezes coming off the lake. At the far end, a staircase led up and down, its dark, gleaming wood intricately carved. Tiptoeing silently, they crowded inside. Seamus turning to close the door behind them just as footsteps echoed on the staircase. In a flash, Seamus pressed the door to. He and Duggan readied themselves as Brennan and Moraine shrank back into the wall. Malachy followed, grabbing Jasmine's sleeve and pulling her with him. They waited, listening, barely breathing as the footsteps came closer. They reached the first floor. Jasmine imagined the owner turning, one hand stretching towards the door handle. Flinging the door open, Seamus sprang forward. The man had time for just one startled little cry, and then Seamus's hand was on his forehead, and his eyes closed, and he fell. Metal clattered, but Duggan was already there, the two of them holding him up to prevent any more noise. Quick! Duggan gestured to Brennan and Moraine. Take him, hide him downstairs, and then come join us. Lifting the man's body, they did as he said, carrying him awkwardly down the narrow stairs. Let's find Cormac and get out of here, Seamus muttered. A few steps into the corridor and they reached an open doorway. Through it the voices echoed, talking loudly. Duggan unsheathed his sword, and watching Malachy did the same. Duggan tensed, and then, with a quick, sharp nod, he leapt into the room, the others following. The upper hall, the dining hall for entertaining only the richest, the most select guests, was enormous. Thick, heavy beams crisscrossed a high vaulted ceiling, and at the far end sat a suspended gallery built for musicians to come and serenade the diners. Wooden panelling had been fixed to each wall, lined with woven tapestries and luxurious blues, reds and oranges, and ceremonial weapons rich in encrusted jewels. Halfway along the right wall, a fire roared inside a huge stone fireplace, large enough to spit a whole cow in. The McDermott family crest chiselled into the stone. A long table and chairs dominated the centre of the room, but unlike Granuaile's rougher, paler wood, this was a deep, dark mahogany. A middle-aged woman and two young men about Jasmine's age were sat in chairs next to the hearth, their clothes rich and opulent, the woman's neck and dark green headdress dotted with jewels. Seeing them, the young men started while the woman got to her feet and calmly and deliberately threw back her head and screamed. Immediately they heard footsteps, and 6 men appeared, coming through the door at the far end of the hall. Seeing them, McDermott's men took out their swords, and as the scream faded, crept slowly towards them. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. In these difficult times, take care and please stay safe.